But I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Is this all just complete incompetence?
Or does this shit happen all the time and there's just more media attention on it right now because there was such a high profile crash last week?
I'm Stephanie Keith.
And I am Tara Manjekovic, and we are unapologetically outspoken.
Okay, before we get started, I have a confession. I am so hungover right now. And I feel like I need to just put it out there because I'm sure I sound like shit. And I'm probably going to mess up a lot today on my notes, but I have not had so much alcohol since like, I don't even know when, but it
Well,
was
what
my
did you
friend's.
have?
So it was my friend's birthday, and she is known for these like coconut martinis. And I love a good martini, but these things are so good. You don't even taste the alcohol, like it just goes down so easily. So she shows her daughter, her daughter's older, but she shows her like how to make them or whatever. This girl, oh my gosh, she was doing such a good job because as soon as my glass was empty, she'd bring me another. And I'm like talking, I'm not even paying attention. And then it hit me like I have had a lot to drink. So I'm going to do
But
my
you had
best, but
fun.
oh,
Well, you had fun and you look great. So
I,
anyone who's actually watching,
well, thank you. I feel like I needed it, get away from the
yeah,
kids for a little bit and just have some fun time to myself. But now I'm kind of
good.
regretting it.
Just drink a lot of water. You'll be fine.
Yes, I definitely need to hydrate. Okay, so I feel like we have so many things to catch up on. Just, you know, since our last episode, it's never a dull moment. But since the last episode, there have been multiple plane incidents, which is freaking me out. So we're going to have to get into all of that. Plus, I found there is a lawsuit against the FAA for unfair hiring practices. So we'll have to dive into that. And then the latest findings from Doge. So I just feel like there's so many really important things going on. But I want to start with the updates on the crash over the Potomac River. So they released more audio, and it does reveal that the Black Hawk was warned multiple times about the plane. And it was, I thought it sounded more clear and direct when I listened to it. Um, but Tara, I'm still hearing mixed opinions left and right. So I want to see what you think because some of these, like experts or people who are pilots are saying absolutely there's no way this was an accident. Others are saying, yeah, it was. It was just an unfortunate confusion. And like the helicopter pilots were probably looking down at the ground and didn't see the plane. And I mean, I don't think we'll ever know for sure if it was intentional or not, but I don't know what to believe at this point. I've been so back and forth.
I think it's going to depend on what's revealed when they get like the black box information because they recovered, I think, the two black boxes from the plane and then the one from the Black Hawk. And going back to the radio transmission issue, like I read a whole bunch of shit this weekend, right? And there's so many different perspectives. And from everything that I read, the consensus is like the Black Hawk was notified of the American Airlines jet twice. And the first warning was given 2 minutes before the collision. And someone from the Black Hawk responded. On the first warning, the response was, quote, traffic in sight. And then on the second warning, someone from the Black Hawk responded and said, quote, aircraft in sight. And for both warnings, the Black Hawk requested visual separation, indicating they would remain a safe distance from the plane. And both times the request was approved by the air traffic control. So the speculation is maybe the crew in the Black Hawk was looking at another plane that was behind the American Airlines flight because apparently flight data shows that there was another inbound plane behind that flight that was like 11 miles away when the helicopter was first issued the warning. So maybe they couldn't tell the difference.
You could see in the video the other plane because there were people that they were getting confused. They thought that was the helicopter, but that was actually the plane behind the plane that got hit. So it was fairly close. I mean, you could see it in that video. So I can definitely see how, if they were looking at that, they completely missed the plane that's right in front of them. But I don't know. It's just like I keep going back and forth because then the other piece that's just been released was that the helicopter was flying 200 feet above its ceiling. So I guess in this particular area, it's supposed to be around 100 feet so that way it's completely out of the way of all these planes that are coming and going, but it was nearly 300 feet. And I guess what these, experts were saying is that air traffic control cannot see the elevation of the helicopter. So they just have to trust that the helicopter stays within its, range of where it's supposed to be. So they had no idea that it was all the way up at 300 feet. And had it been below where it should have been, the incident wouldn't have happened. So I think that's fishy. Like, why were they up so high?
And that's another thing where there seems to be conflicting information. And the question is, was it that they couldn't tell how high the Black Hawk was, or was the system not providing accurate information? Um, because NTSB investigators determined the plane was flying at 350 feet, like plus or minus 25 feet. And this was from the black box on the plane. And at the time, that was at the time of the impact. Okay. And 1 second before the impact, the records show that the crew aboard the American flight had some kind of, they called it a quote, verbal reaction, according to the plane's cockpit voice recorder. And flight data shows that the plane's nose began to rise. So there's speculation that the pilot may have possibly been trying to pull up and avoid the crash at the last minute, but this was literally like a second before impact. And the control tower's radio showed the helicopter at 200 feet, not above 200 feet, at the time of the incident. So clearly that's not possible, right? Like if they collided, there's a 125 to 150-foot difference with what's being shown. So the NTSB is saying that that's a discrepancy that they don't have an explanation for so far.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it had to be at 300 or 350, whatever the plane was at. So that's the thing. That's what's just so weird. It's like there's so many conflicting things. And then you get to thinking, like, okay, this was absolutely an accident, but then something else comes out. And it's sad because I don't think we'll ever really know for sure what was going on. But yesterday I was listening to Megyn Kelly's podcast, and she was saying that a supervisor in air traffic control had let someone leave earlier that evening, and they don't know why, but that's why there was only one controller for both the plane and helicopter. And so now they're looking into that, like why did this person leave? Because if that person had been there, potentially this wouldn't have happened. So it brings up the whole going back to like the training and who these people were they competent? Was DEI in play? Like all of this, right? So then it comes out that there's this civil lawsuit against the FAA. And apparently, there's like around 3,000 top performing air traffic controllers that were rejected by the FAA, supposedly because they were too white. And so these air traffic controllers, they always had a skills-based assessment that was used for hiring. But then apparently when the Obama administration was still in play, they dropped that and replaced it with a biographical test. Now, I'm not sure, I couldn't find out exactly what was in this biographical test, but the purpose of it was to try and recruit more minority applicants. And so the people in this lawsuit, a lot of them scored 100% on the skills assessment, but were rejected on the basis of race. And so Newsweek is reporting on this, and they said the original lawsuit was brought by Andrew Bragida, who scored 100% on the skills assessment, but was emailed by the FAA saying, quote, the FAA was still implementing changes to improve and streamline the hiring process for air traffic controllers, and that his application was impacted by these changes. And so he didn't get the job. So now there's this Mountain States Legal Foundation, and they're representing hundreds of people from all different racial backgrounds who say they were discriminated against under the FAA's hiring policy. And the FAA and Department of Transportation were fighting this case under the previous administration, but now that Trump's in office, I'm sure we're going to see maybe a huge settlement and hopefully include these top performers in who they're hiring, like give them the job that they were supposed to get for, that they were qualified for in the first place.
Yeah, with the way that Trump is completely overhauling DEI in the government, which we will get to a little bit later, I would not be surprised if you're right. I think this lawsuit went back to like 2015 or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
it's old, but I guess, it's coming to light now because of everything that's happening. So it's just it shows like how the hiring policy, like this has been going on for a long time.
yeah.
So when they're trying to blame Trump over what happened in the last 2 weeks, like this has been a problem for years, you know?
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that happened over the weekend was the name of the third soldier in the Black Hawk was released yesterday. And I was reading that she was like a very decorated army member. Like she was 28. Her name was Rebecca Loback. And I was wondering maybe they didn't want to release her name because one of the articles I read that said she was a former White House aide to President Biden.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't
Huh.
know.
Well, it is weird that they withheld her name for so long and then didn't really give a reason for it. They just kind of
No, it was
announced
just,
it.
it was at the request of the family. And one thing I read was that the family felt like there was so much backlash on social media, like saying that it was the Blackhawks' fault that this crash occurred, and maybe they didn't want their daughter's name released because of that. But they made the decision to release it yesterday. So now it seems like everyone on both aircraft have been identified. There's still no word on whether the soldiers were using the night vision goggles at the time of the crash and if that had anything to do with it. And I guess these investigations can take like up to a year, but the NTSB has said they're going to try to release a preliminary report within 30 days. So we'll
Hmm.
see.
Well, after this had happened, then there's this other crash that happened, which of course, you were sleeping, but I was sending you all these texts like, oh my God, what's going on? So this was in Philadelphia, and it was a Learjet 55 medical transport plane, and it crashed very shortly after takeoff in Philadelphia. So it had apparently ascended to 16,000 feet, then just fell out of the sky, is what they're saying. Okay. The news is saying, like, oh, this happens all the time with small planes. Okay, first of all, the videos. I mean, you saw Tara. I sent you
That's
a
what I was
shit
gonna
ton of
say.
videos.
Yeah, you sent me videos and I was like, that's not a plane.
Yeah, it looks like a missile. I mean,
Mhm.
it's crazy. And so that's the thing. You have videos from every single angle because it happened in a neighborhood. So you have all these Ring doorbell cameras, plus you have people that were like on their phone, recording themselves or whatever, and it happens in the background. You have dash cams from people that were on the road. So, I mean, every angle, it looks freaking suspicious. I mean, just like you would see a missile hitting the ground and there's this big, like, mushroom cloud explosion. That's what it looked like. And the level of destruction is huge. I'm not sure at this moment what they're saying, but the last I checked, they said it was like the size of a football field and it's in a very densely populated area. And you look at the footage, it looks like a post-apocalyptic movie scene. I mean, it's crazy. It's just everything's wiped out. And there's this huge crater impact from where the plane hit, which is just like so odd. And so again, it's like so many people keep saying, yeah, but small planes crash all the time. But when's the last time you heard about a small plane crashing and there's this like huge explosion covering an entire neighborhood and destroying buildings and everything in its path? It just seems odd to me. And the other thing that I saw last night is people were showing video from like air shows. So they were showing like a fighter jet that was going like 750 miles per hour. And then they were showing this plane crashing. The plane looked like it was going faster than the videos of these fighter jets. And they were like, how is this? This isn't possible with a little tiny plane like that. So the whole thing is just very odd. And obviously, I don't think anyone knows. They've got to do a full investigation. But what they're saying so far is that the plane had six Mexican nationals in it, including two pilots, a pediatric patient, and her mother, a medic, and a doctor who were headed to Tijuana with a stop in Missouri. So that's pretty much all we know right now. And I think it's very shady.
Yeah, and there's like 22 people that were injured from this crash. And I guess the plane landed like 8 feet deep,
Yes.
which is
It's
crazy.
a great, like, okay, you know, when you hear about like a meteor hitting and there's like a crater in the earth, that is what it looks like.
And
This
no
does not look like a
explanations
plane
being
crash.
given, right?
No,
Like, I haven't seen anything explaining why this would happen.
nope, no idea. I listened to the radio, you know, the air traffic control, and I mean, they lost the signal or whatever, but we don't know. Like, nobody knows what's going on. And the other thing that I thought was weird is the crater. They're showing all these videos of the crater, right? And everything around it. You see cars that are completely destroyed, but the metal frame is still there, you know? There's no remnants of the plane in this crater. So yeah, maybe it all disintegrated up, but nothing?
Right, because they said, I just read that they said they found the black box was 8 feet deep. And then the last recorded data point showed a descent rate of negative 11,000 feet per minute and a ground speed of 247 knots before impact. That's crazy.
This isn't like a normal small plane crash. You know what I
No.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it just, I think there's more to the story here. But again, I mean, are we ever going to get an answer? I don't know. Um, but we'll see. We'll keep everyone posted. But that freaked people out. And just watching the videos, I mean, these poor people that live there and their reactions, I think they probably thought we were getting bombed. I mean, because this explosion like threw people back that weren't
That
even
one
close.
That one video you sent me where the guy was like on his porch and it was like a doorbell cam or something, and you see it crash behind him in this huge explosion, and you see his reaction, and like he had no fucking idea it was coming because he was facing the door. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, this explosion behind him, like
And he
crazy.
looked like he was quite a ways away, but it seemed like there was
Yeah.
still impact where he
Mhm.
was, which is, again, more like a bomb than a plane crash. Just very
Yeah.
odd. So we'll, you know, be watching that story, but that's not all. There's more. There was a clip that I came across on ABC News, and this was an F-35 fighter jet that crashed in an Air Force base in Alaska. And this was during a training exercise. So at first I thought, well, this must be an old clip. But no, this happened on Tuesday. And luckily, the pilot was able to eject himself out of the plane to safety. So, you know, no one was injured, but just weird. And that same week that happened. So now the military is investigating the what they call malfunction. Then yesterday, or was it the day before yesterday? I think it might have been 2 days ago. A United plane caught fire right after takeoff in
I
Houston,
saw that.
Texas.
Hmm.
So luckily, they had just started their takeoff, so they were able to stop and, you know, get back down. No one was injured. Everyone got off the plane, but oh my gosh, people are sharing the videos. they were panicking. You just hear about these plane crashes and then you see fire outside of your plane. And so these poor people were like traumatized. Then there was another incident in Chicago where what was it? A United plane? No, no, no. It was an American plane that was taxiing the runway. And I don't know if it hit the United aircraft tug or if the tug went into the plane, but they had a little collision. And the man operating the tug was like pinned under it. However, I think he's going to be okay. They took him to the hospital. But I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Is this all just complete incompetence? I mean, is it all a coincidence that all of these things happen in one week? What do you think, Tara? Because I'm going
Well,
crazy.
that's the thing. Like, is this like a sudden string of strange incidents, or does this shit happen all the time? And there's just more media attention on it right now because there was such a high profile crash last week. Because remember how we noticed the same type of increase in reports of train derailments for months? Like after the East Palestine incident, it was like train derailment after train derailment, and we'd heard nothing before. And then a few months later, it died down, and now we don't hear anything about train derailments at all. Like, I assume they're still happening.
Right. So that's the thing. It's like, how do we know? I mean, and bringing up the railroads, like, I would love to know if these same DEI hiring practices were in place for all the different, people that were involved in these railroad derailments or whatever you want to call them. Like, were they understaffed, just like air traffic controllers were understaffed? Um, but in any event, I think you're right. I think because of social media, we definitely are hearing about things more. I mean, before like TikTok, really we just went off what the news was sharing because you don't really see this stuff on like Facebook or Instagram a whole lot. So now, you have people that are on the scene or nearby that are posting videos and it's getting spread all over the internet. So I do think these things have always happened and we're just able to see them. And then the other thing too is because people are posting that are on the scene and they're sharing like their personal experiences, I think it hits us differently. It seems like so much more real and a bigger deal when you have like a face and story of the people impacted versus
Yeah.
just hearing a quick blurb on the news and thinking, oh, that's unfortunate, and then going, about your day. But the destruction from this small plane, I'm telling you, like it is catastrophic. And I don't think we should just brush it off. We've got to ask questions and there's some explanation there. I mean, that is not normal for sure. And especially after what happened in New Orleans and Las Vegas, I think we just need to remember like it took, a handful of terrorists on 9/11. I think we should be smart and cautious and request more details on what the hell's going on before we just brush it off.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's like, we also really need to, when you brought up the whole DEI thing, like this investigation into the FAA, I think is something significant because just like how when the East Palestine crash happened, it put all the attention on train safety and the EPA and all the concerns that were going on there. Well, now the same kind of shit is surfacing about the FAA. And tell me this isn't weird, right? Because oddly, the FAA's critical warning system went down on Saturday. Okay. Did
Are
you
you
hear about this?
shitting me? No.
No. Yeah. Okay. So this is different from air traffic control. So air traffic control like monitors the distance between aircraft, but the critical warning system is called notice to air missions. And what it's for is relaying important information about things that would be possible hazards to pilots and airports. So from what I read, things like runway closures, warnings about birds, low altitude construction obstacles, stuff like that. Unfortunately, they do have a backup system. So they didn't have to ground too many flights and they were able to keep flight operations, get them back up quickly and keep going. Um, But this is highlighting yet another issue with the FAA. So I want to play this clip from Transportation Secretary Duffy, which, by the way, did you know he was the real world guy?
No.
Oh my God. Yeah. So
Like the
I
reality
you know,
show?
yes, Sean Duffy. Okay. So
Wait,
I kind
wasn't
of
he like a news anchor too?
I
Or is
don't
that
think
a
he was
different
a
Duffy?
news anchor. No, that was the chick. That was a chick named Duffy on
Oh,
MTV.
okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So this guy, I didn't even realize he's our age, but going back to like he was on the real world for years, like multiple different parts of the series. And I had no idea he was like he became a congressman. Like he went from this like, dude on MTV doing all those reality shows to becoming like this very conservative Republican,
Huh.
ran in his state for something and then made it to Congress. And so now I can't talk about him without the real world shit in my head. But
Right?
anyway, he is, man, he's earning his fucking stripes right now because, again, he's only been there for a few days and there's all this shit going on. But I have to say, I am so excited to be hearing from him instead of fucking butt gig. So I want to play this clip from Fox News. I think it was yesterday or Saturday, addressing this issue with the critical warning system. Joining me now, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. Mr. Secretary, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Thank you, Shannon.
I want to start by asking you about the notice to air mission system or the warning system for pilots that was down overnight. Can you give us an update on where you stand with that?
Shannon, before we do that, I just want to extend my deepest condolences to the families that lost loved ones this past week in these air disasters. I want to say thank you to all the first responders who did such a heroic job on the scene. We are all grateful for them. I want to say that first, but the notice to, by the way, it used to be notice to airmen. Now it's notice to air mission. The last administration changed the name because of their gender ideology concerns, but that system went down last night. The backup system is now up and running as we try to get the primary system online. But this is an old, antiquated system. It has to be upgraded. That's in the works. It has been in the works for years. We have to rush this new system online because, again, this is the second time in 2 years it's gone down.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the crews that are working around the clock. Living in this area, I drive by that site every morning and every evening, and these people are working around the clock, dedicated and doing everything they can to especially offer some amount of closure or help to these families of the victims there. So hats off to them, absolutely. I want to talk about the situation with staffing and what's been reported about what was going on in the air traffic control tower here in Washington on Wednesday night. New York Times says this: staffing at the air traffic control tower at Reagan National Airport was not normal for the time of day and volume of traffic. That's according to an internal preliminary FAA safety report. Can you offer any more clarity about what was going on that night with staffing?
So again, I'll take the FAA at their word that it wasn't normal, and so that's part of the review process that we have to do, Shannon. We have to look and there was a consolidation of air traffic controllers an hour before it was supposed to happen during the time of this crash, and so what was the appropriateness of that? What are we doing to surge air traffic controllers in this country? I mean, that's a different story, but we haven't had enough air traffic controllers in America for a very long time, and so we're working with the FAA right now to go, how do we surge the best and the brightest air traffic controllers to get into the academy, to get trained up. And okay, we don't have to go into the whole thing about training, but he mentioned the system has gone down twice. Like,
Yes.
clearly it's problematic.
It's problematic. And let me just go full conspiracy mode for a second. Okay. This is completely unfounded, but you know how my brain works with this stuff. Because this is what I was thinking before I knew all of that. I was thinking, could it be in the realm of possibility that the helicopter, the Black Hawk, and potentially this plane in Philadelphia were hacked into remotely? I mean, if these Black Hawks are designed to be going on autopilot, couldn't the system be hacked?
I
And
do have
maybe,
to I do have to say something about that because
yeah.
I was reading an article which I did not make notes on, but I had a conversation with my husband over the weekend, and he works with helicopters. He does not work with Blackhawks, but he works with plenty of people who do. And when he was listening to the podcast, we were in the car, and he was listening to our episode from Friday, and you made that comment about the Chevy Tahoe. And he started laughing and he's like, yeah, Blackhawks are more like Pintos than Chevy Tahoes. They don't have that kind of equipment. And
But
I know
why?
well, they have done upgrades on a lot of them, but I guess their original technology was like a lot of the aircraft still have technology from like back in the 80s. So I don't know about this particular Black Hawk. But I was reading an article that it had not been upgraded, and so maybe they didn't even have the capabilities that we would assume you would have in military aircraft when a lot of military equipment is absolute shit.
Okay, I love when your husband gets involved because I always feel bad asking because I'm like, this poor guy, like I don't want to, but it is good to know this stuff because we're not on the inside. I don't know. I've never
Yeah.
been in a Black Hawk before.
And
Um,
again, he does not work on Blackhawks, so
right. Yeah.
you
But
know,
it's just crazy. It's like, you look at how much money the Pentagon spends and it's like we don't have any type of sensors on these things that are in a very busy area. I mean, it's just crazy. And speaking of that, like I know a lot of pilots have spoken up since then saying, yeah, this whole area makes planes nervous all the time because there are so many helicopters going back and forth between DC and, this airport. So I don't know, but yeah, it just made me wonder like, is something being hacked? And then why did the system go down? Like, is it just a shitty system? Probably, but could it have been hacked? I don't know.
I just can't get past the altitude difference
Hmm.
because I can see if maybe the Black Hawk was flying, 25 feet out of the norm, but that would have had to have been like 125 to 150 feet outside of their normal approved range. And unless there's some kind of communication that comes out when the details from the black box come out, from the Black Hawk,
Right.
it seems so out of the norm.
And these weren't amateurs. They all had
Right.
hundreds of hours of experience flying this particular craft. So it just something isn't adding up. I mean, yeah, it probably was an unfortunate accident, but either way, like there needs to be some major overhaul with
Yeah.
the way things are run. And then the grid too. Like this is bringing up a whole other topic we won't get into today, but I have heard people talking about this online, how important it is that we back up our grid because here, like, this is a perfect example of the horrible things that can happen if the grid were to be attacked even
Right.
shortly. So just
Well,
crazy.
I
Can we
think that's
change the
like,
topic now? This is like
yeah.
stressing me out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's one of the things about tragedies, though. Like sometimes it takes something super tragic to spark people making, paying attention and doing what needs to be done to fix shit. And so I just think it's kind of ironic that Trump already talked about wanting to fix all these things, but now there's this sense of urgency because this shit's happening.
Yeah.
But you're right. Let's switch topics and talk about something else that is like causing massive drama, and that is Doge. And oh my gosh, I just went down the rabbit hole of this shit this weekend because Treasury Secretary Bissent gave Elon Musk and Doge the green light to have full access to government spending. And there are multiple agencies that spiraled into like a panic, and just so much shit has been going on.
Yeah, this is a really big deal. I mean, this is going to have huge impacts on everything from our government to the stock market because the shit that's coming out is not good. So, Elon Musk posted on the Doge X account, he said Doge is saving the federal government approximately $1 billion a day. A day. That's crazy. He says it's mostly from stopping the hiring of people into unnecessary positions, deletion of DEI, and stopping improper payments to foreign organizations, all consistent with the president's executive orders. A good start, though, this number needs to increase to more than $3 billion a day. And then he lists like all these agencies that this money was going to, including $45 million to DEI scholarships in Burma.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
why? Well,
Oh,
I
I
mean,
I think we're going to find out a lot more about where this DEI money is being spent because as of Friday afternoon, there were 104 government DEI contracts that were canceled, including 21 from the Treasury Department, 15 from the Department of Homeland Security, 3 from the Office of Personnel Management, 11 from the Department of Agriculture, and 7 each from the Agency for Internal Development and Homeland Security. So I'm sorry, DHHS, that's Health and Human Services, right? Yeah,
yeah.
that was the 15, and then 7 from Homeland Security. What do most of these government agencies need that many fucking DEI contracts for?
And did this money actually go to DEI?
Right.
Or is this going to the friends of the politicians that
Mhm.
won these grants or contracts or scholarships, whatever you want to call them? And like the US Treasury is in some deep trouble. Like this is the huge news. So Robbie Starbucks posted on X saying the highest ranking Treasury official, David A. Lebrick, is resigning rather than complying with a request by Doge for access to audit where they've spent trillions of dollars a year. Why would career bureaucrats fear an audit by Elon Musk and Doge to see where we can save money? So then Elon shared this post to his account and added, quote, the Doge team discovered, among other things, that payment approval officers at Treasury were instructed to always approve payments, even to known fraudulent or terrorist groups. They literally never denied a payment in their entire career, not even once. And then he did another post on X where Elon Musk did, where he gave examples like the Pentagon spending $600 million a year on sushi. The Air Force spent $1,280 per paper coffee cup. And he said, like literally, each individual paper coffee cup. The IRS spent $230,000 every month on Starbucks cinnamon roast K cups, even though everyone was working at home and no one was in the office. So the fact that this Treasury official is resigning, I think it tells us that, he knows what they did was wrong and shit's about to hit the fan. So he's jumping ship. But my question is like, is resigning enough? Because this is misusing federal funds to the tune of trillions of dollars. It's criminal. This is taxpayer money. And I think criminal charges need to be brought. I mean, trillions of dollars, you can't just steal trillions of dollars and simply resign.
No, and you know how you were mentioning like payments going to terrorist groups?
Hmm.
Well, it just came out this morning that the Biden admin spent 3 million giving money to the Palestinian government for like their security forces for weapons training right after it had carried out its attacks on Israel. Like, what the fuck? Right?
Yeah.
So, a similar thing happened to what you just talked about at the U.S. Agency for International Development. So, Saturday night, 2 of the top security officials were put on administrative leave because they refused to allow Doge to access their systems. And I guess this was even after Doge personnel threatened to call U.S. Marshals to be given access. And last week, 60 senior officials at this organization were put on leave for attempting to circumvent Trump's executive order on foreign aid. So, yes, this absolutely begs the question, what the fuck are they hiding, right? And you've got left-leaning outlets who are saying they're not hiding anything. These officials were put on leave because they were carrying out their legal obligation to protect classified information. And, Doge was trying to force their way in. But it's like, what exactly is classified about where our money is going overseas? And why should that be classified? This agency spends billions of dollars on programs all over the world. And their focus is supposed to be on alleviating poverty and famine and treating disease and responding to natural disasters. So what's classified about that, right? And according to the Congressional Research Service, this agency has 10,000 employees, and that's not counting outside contractors, which we know there are thousands of them, right? But 2/3 of these 10,000 employees are overseas, and they're providing assistance to 130 different countries. And if they're not doing shady shit, then they wouldn't be worried about an audit from Doge. So this tells me that they definitely are doing shady shit.
I'm starting to see why they're going to such great lengths, or why they were trying to go to such great lengths to keep Trump out of office, because
Mhm.
all of this is coming to the forefront. I mean, it's so horrible, and this has probably been going on forever. Um, but yeah, like shit's hitting the fan now. The fact that the guy resigned from the US Treasury tells me he knows they're at the end of the
Yeah.
rope and
Yep.
there's going to be consequences. So yeah, there's that going on. Then I come across this article from the Associated Press, AP,
Associated.
whatever.
Yeah. Yippee.
They said former, gosh, see, it's like the hangovers kicking in. A former Federal Reserve advisor has been arrested for sharing trade secrets with China. His name is John Harold Rogers, and he's accused of stealing Federal Reserve trade secrets and selling them to Chinese intelligence officials for at least $450,000, and then turning around and lying to Federal Reserve investigators and Consumer Financial Protection Bureau officials. So that's not good. That's a big deal.
No. Yeah, that's a very big deal. And again, I think we're just going to find more and more of these people that are either going to get fired or will be resigning because shit's going to come out about the shady stuff that they've been doing. But since you mentioned China, this is a whole other topic, but I just want to mention briefly, there's this whole controversy now going on with the DeepSeek app. And I was reading in Bloomberg yesterday that US officials are investigating whether NVIDIA chips were given to these Chinese firms through Singapore, because apparently NVIDIA's sales to Singapore went up 740% from the date that DeepSeek was founded. Coincidence? I think not, right? And so investigators are questioning if DeepSeek got access to these chips from Singapore, since we have, export controls and restrictions on them going directly to China. So maybe this technology was actually manufactured with US chips.
So that would mean that they're not way far ahead of us in China, because their
Mhm.
whole thing was, oh, we were able to do this more efficiently and with these, shittier chips or whatever. So maybe the whole thing was just fabricated and they're just doing the same thing we're doing, just basically copying our technology, which they've done for years.
Right. And then the other thing that happened yesterday, I'm sure you saw this and you probably know more about it than I do, but OpenAI unveiled their new AI technology agent yesterday, and they're promising that this is going to help users, like what they would normally take several hours to do, they'll be able to do in 10 minutes. And Stephanie, what is it called? It's called deep research.
Are you shitting me?
No, it is called deep research. And this is apparently like
Did Sam
OpenAI.
Altman come up with that
Yes.
himself?
Yes, he did. I'm sure he did. And he's calling it like OpenAI's answer to DeepSeek. So I guess we'll
So
see how that.
original, Sam Altman.
Yeah.
I think
But
we're going to see a lot of crazy shit with that. We're going to have to do an AI episode to
yeah.
dive into just how crazy that is, because it's wild.
Oh, 100%. Because this is, I guarantee you, this is going to impact the AI's independent thinking capabilities that I'm so frightened of. But again, we'll get into that another time. The other thing I have to mention, because this was like watching a really good movie over the weekend, was watching the response to Trump's tariff program. So he followed through on his word. The tariffs went into effect with Canada and Mexico over the weekend, just like Trump said they would. And this escalated into a very tense exchange with Canada. So Trudeau, on Saturday, he gave a press conference where he announced that Canada was going to do a 25% retaliatory tariff on US goods. So this will be like fruit, alcohol, clothing, shoes, household appliances, furniture, lumber, plastics. He was saying like, you know, instead of drinking Kentucky bourbon, you'll have to drink, you know, Canadian whiskey instead. And he the tariffs will apply to like $30 billion worth of goods starting tomorrow. And that will be followed by another 125 billion worth of goods. But he's waiting 21 days so that Canadian suppliers and companies will have time to find like alternate sellers that aren't from the US. And he said, quote, if President Trump wants to usher in a new golden age for the United States, the better path is to partner with Canada, not punish us. Canada has critical minerals, reliable, affordable energy, stable democratic institutions, shared values, and the natural resources you need. Canada has the ingredients necessary to build a booming and secure partnership for the North American economy, and we stand at the ready to work together. So, of course, there had to be a response from Trump, right? So yesterday afternoon, he goes on Truth Social and he says, quote, and again, there's so many things capitalized in here. He says, quote, we pay hundreds of billions of dollars to subsidize Canada. Why? There's no reason. We don't need anything they have. We have unlimited energy, should make our own cars, and we have more lumber than we can ever use. Without this massive subsidy, Canada ceases to exist as a viable country. Harsh but true. Therefore, Canada should become our cherished 51st state. Much lower taxes and far better military protection for the people of Canada, and no tariffs. And Stephanie, he's totally right, because I was reading in the New York Post, I didn't even realize it was this much, but 75% of Canada's exports go to the US and only about 13% of American exports go to Canada. So this tariff thing, even if they're threatening us with retaliatory tariffs, it's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt us.
Yeah, they need us more than we need them. And what is up with Trudeau? Like all of a sudden he's going to play tough guy. Didn't he resign or say he's
Yeah.
going to resign and everyone like hates him? So screw you, Trudeau.
Yes. And that brings me to the next thing I want to say, which is he's being called out in Canada because you know that company Shopify?
Hmm.
Well, I didn't know that was a Canadian company, but apparently it's Canada's second largest company and it's the biggest tech company in the country. It's the biggest ever startup company in Canada. It's worth $150 billion. And the CEO, his name is Toby Lutke, and he is one of Canada's richest people. And he went online this weekend and defended Trump. And he said that Canadians want their government to do all the things that Trump is demanding. And he totally slammed Trudeau. So he posted on X and said, quote, leadership is about doing what's right, not what's popular. Hitting back will not lead to anything good. America will shrug it off. Canada will decline. Canada thrives when it works with America together. Win by helping America win. Trump believes that Canada has not held its side of the bargain. These are things that every Canadian wants its government to do too. These are not crazy demands, even if they came from an unpopular source.
Well,
And I
good. I'm glad
agree.
he's speaking up. And I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot more people agree with that because, again, like Trudeau is one of the most unpopular politicians, I think, in the country's history, right?
Yeah, yeah. He's like, I'm surprised he's even doing anything at this point. But after Canada did that, the president of Mexico follows suit on Saturday night, and Mexico announces retaliatory tariffs of 25% as well. And it's predicted that China's going to do the same. And of course, the left-leaning MSM is making it look like Trump is going to destroy the country with his tariff plan. And so I have to read another Truth Social post that he put out yesterday because the Wall Street Journal was like majorly criticizing his Trump plan, his tariff plan. And so here's what Trump posted, and I fucking love this. He said, quote, "The tariff lobby, headed by the globalist and always wrong Wall Street Journal, is working hard to justify countries like Canada, Mexico, China, and too many others to name to continue the decades-long ripoff of America, both with regard to trade, crime, and poisonous drugs that are allowed to so freely flow into America. Those days are over. The USA has major definitions with Canada, Mexico, and China, and almost all countries, owes $36 trillion, and we're not going to be the quote, stupid country any longer. Make your product in the USA, and there are no tariffs. Why should the United States lose trillions of dollars in subsidizing other countries? And why should these other countries pay a small fraction of the cost of what USA citizens pay for the drugs and pharmaceuticals, for example?" And then this whole last part is in caps. He says, this will be the golden age of America. Will there be some pain? Yes, maybe, and maybe not. But we will make America great again, and it will all be worth the price that must be paid. We are a country that is now being run with common sense, and the results will be spectacular. And like, again, I love this. And he's right. It probably is going to be economically painful for Americans for a while. But it's like, you can't have growth without some kind of pain, right? Like, that's how it is with anything. Just take, wanting to lose weight, for example, or you want to gain muscle. What do you have to do? You have to go to the gym. And sometimes it fucking sucks because you have to put in the work and do the hard shit to get the body you want. Well, our country's been run into the ground with all these woke politics, and Trump's trying to turn it around. And there's probably going to be some pain in that process because it's not going to be easy or immediate, especially with the fucking trillions of dollars of debt that we owe. So we really have to come together as a country and support this process because it's like the result in the end is going to be worth it, but it's going to suck in the meantime.
Because it's going to bring businesses, manufacturers, jobs back to America. And
Yeah.
like Trump said, we have unlimited energy here. We just haven't been able to tap into it because of, the EPA and Biden. But once we get that going, I think it's going to impact pretty much everything. And I mean, Trudeau, like, no one's taking him seriously. And we don't really need Canada for anything. And Mexico, like, this is the other thing. We're probably going to have to do a whole episode on this because at first it seemed like they were willing to work with us. Well, now, she announces the tariffs and then the cartels are getting like wild. And apparently, I just saw this morning on News Nation, the cartels are giving their people the orders that they can go ahead and use weaponized drones on American border agents and military. And so people that live near the border are saying they're seeing a huge military presence and are wondering, like, are we going to war with Mexico, aka the
Right.
cartels? Because it
Who
seems like
have
things are really heating
infiltrated,
up.
yeah, who have infiltrated our country and are already on the inside. And that to me is the scariest part of
Yeah,
this because we don't know how many of these cartel members are inside the country already for the
right.
last 4 years.
Exactly. And the fact that they're going to such great lengths, it's like, think about what they've been getting away with for all
Mhm.
this time. If they're willing to go to war with the United States military,
Right.
like it, again, I've said it before. I think that what has been happening under the Biden administration is the biggest human trafficking scandal in the history of human
Yeah.
trafficking, slavery, all of it. I mean, I think it's on such a big scale and it's such a big moneymaker for them, along with the fentanyl and everything else, that it's going to be rough. I mean, they're definitely not going to lay down and let Trump kick them out. It's going to be like a bloody battle, it's sounding like.
Yeah, and it's going to take time. Like this shit is just
Mhm.
not going to happen overnight. And I want people who have these expectations of Trump, like I have these expectations, but we have to give him and his administration the ability and the opportunity to fix shit. And
Mhm.
like on a whole other topic, which we're not even getting to today because I don't think we have any answers. Um, I really fucking hope that Republicans in Congress can stop fucking playing games and come together and confirm RFK Jr. and confirm fucking Tulsi and like let's fucking fix this shit. And we can't fix this shit without the right people in place.
Exactly. Yeah, well, they have a lot of people watching, so they better think wisely because I don't think that people are going to be too happy if Republicans are the reason that these people don't get confirmed.
Right.
So
And
hopefully,
total
mhm.
side note, did you happen to listen to Megyn Kelly's interview with Marco Rubio?
No,
Okay, because you know I'm not a big fan of his.
neither am I.
But you should go listen to the episode. I was actually very impressed. It made me think of him differently. If he's being authentic in everything that he was saying, I totally saw his side of a lot of things and what he wants to do for our country. And I have a better feeling about him now than I did before I listened to it.
Well, I do think he's doing a good job just because I heard that he went and met with the president or whoever's in charge of Panama, and
Mm,
Panama like kicked China out from controlling the
yes.
canal, like
Yeah.
right after meeting with Rubio just one time. So that's a really big deal. So I'm willing to see the positives. I do think I don't trust the guy completely, but so far he's doing a good job. So that's a positive. But yeah, we'll keep everyone updated on these confirmation hearings.
And Cash Patel. Cash Patel needs to be confirmed too.
They all do. And if one of them doesn't, I mean, people are going to go crazy. It's like there is a mandate from the public that without doubt, this is what the American people wanted.
Yep.
So I hope everyone has a good week. That's a lot to throw at you for Monday, but there's just so much going on. So we'll stay on top of it and see you back here on Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in.